Okay, so because there's lace at the bottom of the dress, I can't really just hem this because it does its own little loop-de-loops. I don't know how well you can see that. And I don't want to cut that off. So I'm going to be taking it up. I must say that the people who sewed this dress did a very good job. It was very well done, and I actually learned a few things from how they did it. That's one thing I really like about sewing, is you take apart the pattern and figure out how they did it and keep that in mind for future projects. What I actually did is I replicated part of the dress after I resized it, and I used the style of pattern making that they had, and it turned out really well. So that was cool. What I have here is the skirt without the lace. I took the lace off. I'm going to work with it separately. Now I'm pinning the lining to the very front of the skirt so that I can gather it. And I'm still deciding how I'm going to be gathering the skirt. I want it to be really unique looking. I don't want it to just be boring gathers or pleats. Haven't really decided how I'm going to do that yet. What I'm realizing is I'm only going to need to pleat uniquely the lace because that's the only thing that's going to be seen. So I'm just going to be gathering, well, I'll be sewing these two pieces of fabric together and then gathering them together. And I'm just going to do 2 gathering stitches, pull it to the width that I want it, and then I'm done. When I was trimming it, I realized that it wasn't as accurate as I would have done it had I known. But because it's the lining that is just a tad bit shorter, like an inch or less, than the overlaying piece of fabric, it doesn't really matter, especially because there's going to be lace over it. So I'm not really too worried. It's just a hiccup that I'll have to be more aware of in the future. Once you cut into fabric, you can't undo that mistake. And you also really shouldn't have a pity party and cry over your mistakes. You just gotta learn to work with what you got. I'm about to sew the gathering stitch, and what I'm gonna do first is put on the widest stitch setting as, the longest stitch setting as possible. The width doesn't really matter that much. I want it to be more or less a straight line. I'm not gonna mess with that. This is kind of an average in the middle setting. But it's very important that this is the longest stitch possible because it's going to make the stitches looser and more easy to pull, because the idea is to sew a long seam and then after I do 2 of them, pull the strings together and gather the fabric really evenly. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that in just a minute here. So I'm going to make sure that I sew a little bit away from the end so that there's no issue with the fabric fraying. It's gonna be loud. So I have sewn both stitches, so you can see right here. There are 2, and they're using a long stitch, and they go all the way around. And you'll notice that I did not go back and forth on the stitches at the end. I want there to be longer strings so that I can gather them. And what I'm gonna do is take the top thread from one, and some people have theorized that if you take the bottom thread from the other, it's more secure. So I'll do that, but honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. Okay, so I'm going to take these 2 threads and wrap them around my finger, and I'm going to start to pull, and what's going to eventually happen is it'll gather like this. Wow, this is hard. This might take a while. And part of the reason why it's hard is because it's more, fabric is more plasticky It's satin, it's more delicate, and because there are 2 layers of fabric instead of just 1, which is more typical, but I didn't want to have to do this twice. It's more bulky if you gather 2 different pieces of fabric together and then have to put them together, so it's worth the extra effort just to do it this way. But if you want an easier time and you're worried that you're going to damage it or rip the threads, which if you do that, then you have to start over because you can't have broken threads, then do it separately. But I'm hardcore, so that's not happening. So I have gathered it, and I've kept in mind that my model's waist length is 27 inches. And because I'm going to be sewing in a zipper and then there's a seam in the back, I'm going to keep some extra space. So I have an inch on this side and an inch on this side, and there's already a seam here from the previous dress that I'm just keeping. There's no reason to cut it off. And so I'm not including that in the 27 inches. And I'm just doing this to make sure that it is measurably accurate. Okay. Ultimately, this is all going under lace fabric. So these gathers aren't really going to be seen. They just need to be gathered so that the dress doesn't fall off of the bride. So now I'm going to re-sew it and see what happens. Right now, I am just pleating the back of the skirt, and I'll show you the front. We have the 2 bigger pleats here, and then a slightly smaller pleats on both sides, and then it goes and it starts to overlap more. And now I've got about this much fabric left, and I'm gonna do a lot of ruffles in the back because I have a lot of excess fabric left, and I guess it'll make kind of a cool bustle effect. I don't want the skirt to be too puffy in the front though. In the back it's okay because there's going to be a train anyway, but in the front I want it to be really clean and simplistic, and I want the top to be the star. So we'll see how this goes after I finish pinning. I've pinned everything, and it starts in the front, and then there's slightly smaller pleats, and then it goes all the way to the back. It's about 2 yards long, and I've cinched it all into about 28 inches, which is going to be perfect for my model's 27-inch waist. What I'm going to do next is sew these pleats together so that I can take the pins out, and then I'll attach it to the lining of the skirt and sew all of that together, and then work on sewing in the zipper. So at this point, I've finished sewing the top, and I'm just working on sewing on these pieces of lace that I'm framing the bust with. My mom actually sewed a dress like 20 years ago. She was Mrs. New Mexico like 20-something years ago. And so she actually sewed a few of her pageant dresses, and this lace, which she had little scraps of, was sewn onto one of those dresses, and I found it in my stuff and was like, hey, I'll use this. But I'm gonna be sewing this on, and then it'll kind of end in the back, and then I'm going to sew some beads, and then I'll be pretty much done, which is amazing. I honestly, embarking on this little wedding gown sewing journey, I was skeptical that I would have good results, so I'm very pleasantly surprised that anything good has come of it. It's definitely taken a good chunk of my life lately to do, but it's very satisfying work. I have good news! The skirt is done, and what I did was I ended up gathering all of the back, and then on the inside I put in the zipper, and then I left a bit because I didn't think I needed to do all of it. It was a little bit long. And then the back, originally the zipper was crooked, but I decided that I really wanted it to be even because I like doing good work. So I fixed it, and now the zipper goes up and down like it should. Duh. So yay, the skirt is done. I'm very, very happy with it. It fits perfectly. And then over here we have the top, I sewed the lace, and then I sewed it under, and then I sewed on some beads, and I sewed it here, and I followed this little pattern with the lace, and then I sewed a few onto complementary places in the braid. Same on the other side, and then I kind of followed the lace on both sides, and so I'm super happy. I'm gonna have my model try this on when I see her soon, and then make any last minute changes, and then we'll do the shoot. Hey guys! Wow, that was such a long series of videos. Sewing a wedding dress takes a long time. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time following me, listening to me mutter to myself and sew and seam rip and sew again. And if you're interested in seeing the pictures of the dress at the photo shoot, you can go to my blog on my website at www.perfectlyplannedmoments.com. And on my blog, there's a blog post that says Point Raised Photo Shoot, and you could look at the pictures there. You could also go to my Instagram, which is Perfectly Planned Moments on Instagram, and you can see lots of the pictures that I've reposted there. So, again, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in learning more about my business and weddings and how to sew wedding dresses. Thank you!